Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else. Oh, gosh. Welcome to the third speak event of this year. I am evidently not Thomas. Thomas is poorly, and he's really sorry he can't be here, which is, lucky that we're getting it filmed. So unfortunately, my introductions will not be as eloquent and as kind of beautifully worded as his, but I'll do my best. So this kind of series, today's thingy, it's been a long day at work. The subject of this one is kind of like life and big questions. So we have a talk on cosmology. We have a talk, we have a talk on death and that kind of thing. We've got a talk on mental health and music, and we have a talk on transhumanism. So it's a very broad kind of topic. These are all things that terrify me, and so I'm kind of excited and a little bit nervous for this. So if you hear me hyperventilate in the back, don't worry about it, I'll be fine, I've got wine. But yeah, so if you need to leave at any time, that's fine. Please don't be disruptive, but if you need to leave, that's not a problem. There are the exits. There's no fire drill planned, so there's a fire. Yes, Carl?
Time to cheat before we start.
Yeah, go on. I'll vamp for a bit. No pressure. Don't worry about it. So the idea of the Student Lecture Series, obviously it was VP Health Thomas's idea, was that there was something where students could talk about their research. So the first one, he did his about comedians and mental health, and someone else did something about drag culture, and I did mine about pooing. So they're on YouTube if you want to see those, because they're very interesting. And then the last one was during Safe Week, and it was about relationships, and Kyle did one. Someone did one about asexuality, someone did one about the Nels. Virginity. Again, you can look at all those on YouTube. And we're potentially having one more next month, so if you're interested, email Thomas with your ideas. You can talk about literally anything. I mean, preferably that it's not kind of hugely offensive to people, because that's not okay. But yeah, apart from that, and it was just something that was kind of non-drink related that we could put on for them. So Karl, take the stage. Round of applause. There we go.
I guess I'll just click it and it comes on.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay, alright everyone? Hi, how is everyone? Okay, I'm Karl, I'm a second year creative writing student, and to give a brief sort of synopsis of me in space, I was scared stiff about space as a kid. I remember watching Alien with my dad, and it got to the chest burst scene, and I was just like, not having none of that. I was like 8 at the time, and then we watched a documentary where this kid got repeatedly, I was going to say alien napped because I forgot what it's called, abducted by aliens repeatedly, like not once in his life, it was like 8 times. So I used to have nightmares about it. I used to go to bed and be like, there's an alien outside my window. I used to imagine there was a statue outside my house that was an alien, even though there wasn't a statue outside my house. So instead of looking up, I turned my sort of eyelids down and got my adventurous spirit sort of turned towards the ocean. And to this day, I've got passion for sort of like all things boats, sailors, and the deep blue. And as I grew up, I figured if the bottom of the sea is pretty awesome, then let's give upstairs sort of another try. So I did, and it's a freaking amazing place. So in this picture alone, which is compiled of several pictures weaved together, which took about 10 years to make, I'm not sure how or why, but that's how it worked, we can see several galaxies, which is a cluster of stars, interstellar gas, dust, and dark matter. This is a picture shows the most galaxies ever photographed, except for a few foreground stars. Everything you see is another galaxy. It's not that clear on this, but every single spot is a different galaxy with planets and all that sort of bit. I thought that was pretty wow. So what is cosmology? Cosmology comes from the Greek kosmos, meaning world, and ology, meaning to study, which is why a lot of subjects you study end in ology. The purpose of cosmology is to try and explain the origin and evolution of everything that's in the universe, from the beginning of time towards the present, and then predicting what comes in the future. It's a little bit bleak, but I've erased a lot of that from the presentation. Cosmology is the structure and evolution of the universe as a whole, the gigantic and the very tiny. So astronomy, astrology, and cosmology. That was harder to say in practice. Cosmology is not to be confused with astronomy, which is the study of celestial objects, such as stars, galaxies, planets, and moons. Astrology and cosmology are very linked, although astronomy looks at sort of our galaxy and those parts of space, and then cosmology looks at sort of the big area. Literally, every single thing in space is cosmology. Astrology, on the other hand, is the belief that star patterns and astronomical phenomenon can alter effects in alter events in the human world. This is mostly debunked by science as a whole. I've got a really coolly just changed my eyes there. So a brief history of mythology. So in the beginning, most creation myths incorporate the idea of an omnipresent craftsman. So another image is the growth of order from chaos. The Babylonian version of Genesis follows order from chaos. I'm going to try and pronounce its name. It's called the Ema Elish. In this account, the state of disorder is identified with the sea. From the sea emerge several gods and goddesses, representing parts of the world, such as the sky, the horizon, and so forth. The goddess of chaos, and incidentally the goddess of the sea, Tiamat, fought with the god Marduk. From her fallen body, Marduk created order in the earth itself. I'm going to have to explain my picture of turtles. It's not just there to be cute, though they are pretty awesome. Somewhat humorous once popular belief was that the earth was a flat disc laid on the back of a turtle, known as the world turtle. A well-known scientist was once doing a debate on cosmology and sort of challenged this belief with a smirk. He asked of his lecture hall, "But what is the turtle standing on?" To which a very stern old lady raised her hand and remarked, "You're very clever, young man, very clever, but it's turtles all the way down." So that's what they once believed. So I'm going to go through a brief history of several of the sort of like the big events in cosmology. So the Greeks, they started many new scientific developments with their use of mathematical reasoning and geometry. Plato expounded a complete account of the creation of the universe, and then Aristotle, who was sort of like his protege, I suppose, his right-hand man, expanded on his teachings and concluded that the planets and stars form perfect circles, and the universe was a sphere centered on the Earth. Now, as we know, that's slightly wrong, but at the time it was like, how could you say that? It's crazy. We now come to the Renaissance, or the Renaissance, I don't know, I think one's the American pronunciation. Most knowledge was lost to Christian culture during the Dark Ages, but it survived in the Islamic world. Thomas Aquinas seized on Aristotle's ideas and created a synthesis of pagan and Christian cosmology. The Earth was debunked as the center of the universe, and then this fella, which I think his hair is probably the most important part about him, because that's a gorgeous bit of set hair. Sir Isaac Newton also popped up at one point too, but more on him later. Cosmology today, we'll start relatively small. It began with Albert Einstein's general theory of relativity, which was published in 1915, which created the basis for the Big Bang model, which I'm going to explain in its entirety in a little as 4 slides later, so that might get a bit heavy. Supercomputers can help work out the great mathematical equations of the universe. Here are some of the heroes of cosmology. Now, because of time, have I got time to read each one out? Or?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, go for it. I just can't pronounce some of their names, so I was hoping you'd say it, skip some, but I'll go for it anyway.
We won't.
So this is Claudius Ptolemy, which he wrote the Algomas, which was a mathematical thesis on the notion of stars and planetary paths. Being the early authority on this subject, I like his pose there too. Being the early authority on this subject, they actually called him king, even though he didn't bear that title. They just thought he was that impressive. They're just going to go, he's the king, and people sort of went with it. He also mapped 48 star constellations across the sky, which have been adapted and used to this very day. He's also got wonderful hair, and his nose is something else. This is Nicholas Copernicus, I think I've pronounced that right. He placed the sun as the center of the universe, and that all the planets revolved around it. He fought prosecution from the Christian church, who deemed his ideas slightly blasphemous. He got into a bit of trouble for that. So did this fella, who looks a lot less happy. This is Galileo Galilei, which is poetry in itself. He made numerous improvements to the telescope and consequential sort of observations, and was a supporter of Copernicanism, which was the idea that the sun was the center of the universe. He also had to fight great outcry from the church that deemed his ideas a bit cheeky. So here's the man with the beautiful hair himself. Sir Isaac Newton, who wrote the Principia, which formulated the laws of motion and universal gravity. These laws of gravity were, every body continues in a state of rest or movement in a straight line unless it is compelled to change that state by forces upon it, which is, why you can't get out of bed for lectures. Momentum works based on what force and direction of the force upon the object. I don't even understand that one myself. And to every action there is always an equal opposite reaction, which is, I think, possibly the one he's most well known for. This dapper-looking gentleman with a pipe, this would be Edward Hubble. Like how an ambulance sounds more high-pitched up close, and then the pitch gets lower as it moves away. I was going to scream into my microphone at this point, but that would be a terrible idea. This is called the Doppler effect, because sound waves get stretched as they move further away. Well, Edwin Hubble here figured that the same must happen with light, and he discovered with the help of several fellow scientists that the stars were moving away from one another, that many remote stars were actually other compressed galaxies moving away from us. He discovered the universe was constantly expanding, a topic that we'll reach on in a bit. So this well-known gentleman is Albert Einstein, who developed the general theory of relativity and wrote many more scientific papers than can be listed here. Also of note, he wrote a letter encouraging the US to start creating nuclear weapons, but was not actively involved in their creations, as some people sort of believe. And then finally, last but not least, is Stephen Hawking, who predicted that black holes emit radiation and discovered much about black holes as we know of them today. He also helped provide sort of proof of the general theory of relativity. I wish I had more of them, because some fantastic things. So what about us? So the universe is 13.8 billion years old. Now, this is a vast number to even comprehend, but I'm going to try and condense the whole of the universe's lifespan to just 13 years, and we're going to see the results in the most technical graph you've ever seen. So we'll be counting down to present day 0 from the beginning of the universe at 13 years. So this first arrow, the small one that you can hardly see, not the giant one, this is 12 years on that sort of scale, which is where the first stars and galaxies formed. This was actually 12.7 billion years ago. So then if you jump 7.5 years later to what would count as 4.5 years, the Earth would form. We then go to 4 years, which is half a year later, when the first single cell organism would form on Earth, and then jump all the way from 4 years to 6 months where multicellular organisms would appear. And then at this third arrow, all complex life on Earth is quite a recent development. On this scale, so on this arrow just here, the dinosaurs only went extinct about 3 weeks ago. Humans and chimpanzees split from their last ancestor around 3 days ago. Homo sapiens, that's us, sort of arrived 50 minutes ago. Then they left Africa, which is the place of our common ancestor, 26 minutes ago. The native Indians reached America 6 minutes ago. Agriculture, that oh so important sort of step, that was 5 minutes ago. Egypt was 3 minutes ago. The Black Death, safely away from that, that was 24 seconds ago. The Industrial Revolution, that was 6 seconds ago. World War I was 2 seconds ago. And on this last arrow, the Cold War, the first man on the moon, your birth, the internet, and the Big Mac, the most important of all those inventions, is all within the very last second. So in the timeline of space, history, and all that, we're there. Which is sad or happy? I don't know which one to take from that. I don't know whether to cry or to cheer. So the universe is ever expanding. Just as the time span of the universe there was condensed into 13 years or so, the universe itself also began a lot smaller. The universe is ever expanding, with all the galaxies, stars, and even atoms being clumped together and slowly expanding outwards. It has been said that at one point the entire universe would have been able to rest on top of a pinhead. Obviously now it's huge as hell. That's the scientific description. To demonstrate this, take this balloon, which I don't know where I've put it. It's over there. If my lovely assistant.
Go try the universe.
Do you want me to take it out and blow it up?
No, I'll pass it over. So this is what the universe, all those little dots, this is definitely the scale, was what each galaxy used to look in the universe. And then as time went on, you can represent time, I suppose.
Do I have to blow it up anymore?
No, that'll do it, unless you want to go for like a record or something.
There you go.
So as you can see, if you can see, hopefully, the galaxies spread apart and the gaps between them get wider as the universe is expanding. So this is happening even now. The balloon is getting bigger and bigger. And then some scientists would say one day it's going to pop. That's a bit bleak. You're going to have to let it go.
You're going to have to let it go.
Wait, I should do it visible so it doesn't look like I'm just farting on campus. I'm really nervous now, yeah. So this is the Big Bang Theory, and I'll put controversially perhaps, not the terrible TV show because I'm not a fan. So a lot of people say what happened before the Big Bang. Well, theoretical physicists state that space and time are not two separate things. They are sort of like the whole sort of like unit. They're space-time. And this space-time was created by the Big Bang. Time did not exist before the Big Bang, so it does not make sense to ask what happened before the Big Bang, as there was no then. Like most things in cosmology, all of these explanations are going to sound pretty complex, so I'll carry on. So the Big Bang wasn't something that happened within our universe or within any form of space, according to the theoretical physicist. It was literally the moment when time and space itself were created. It was the first spark of life, I suppose. The Big Bang was the universe itself expanding from an unimaginable microscopic point to a still increasing and ever expanding gigantic universe, incredibly quickly. Most of the universe creation happened in the first few seconds in terms of expelling the atoms needed to form a universe. In comparison, it takes me like an hour to get out of bed and then contemplate that. Oh, I want to go back to bed, and then that. So the universe is a lot more quicker than me. For example, the universe went from something smaller than an atom to the size of a grapefruit in mere seconds, and in the actual blink of a human eye, it went from the size of a tennis ball to 90 billion light years across. So it's a bit of a quick worker. The theory of the Big Bang has always been backed up by some good mathematics, not that could only be proven by supercomputers, because cosmology likes to throw so much maths at you that it's insane. But has now gained further support by the discovery of CBR, which is cosmic background radiation, which I will talk about quite a bit in a little bit, which can be monitored to help measure the age of various points of the universe, including those parts on the very edge of the universe. 10 seconds after the Big Bang, electromagnetism and gravity were already in place and in charge and sort of, ruling over things. Antimatter created in the Big Bang combined with matter and cancelled each other one out. So they had a little wrestling match and they cancelled one each other out, leaving only behind 1/1000th of the original matter created in the Big Bang. And that billionth is everything. Every piece of sand, every strawberry, every shoe, I'm going to stop listing household objects and stuff like that. Every star you shall ever gaze upon, everything. Just give that a second. So everything you see, including us, is 1/1000th of the matter and energy created by the Big Bang. So we're a tiny, wonderful portion of that. So the first law of thermodynamics, is that right? So as by definition, the first law of thermodynamics is matter and energy cannot be created or destroyed. So everything we have now, we had then. The matter that makes up your body right now has been around since time began, which is 13.8, roughly, billion years ago. At 3 minutes, the universe reached a point cool enough that the nuclei of atoms started forming to hydrogen and helium, which are the two most oldest elements on the periodic table. So if you took this hydrogen and you wait several billion years, that's enough to create us. At 380,000 years, the universe was cool enough, 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit, which is to allow radiation and matter to separate from one another. Matter is just a combined form of energy, so fundamentally, we're all just sacks of energy. This is more blatant than I thought. So cosmic background radiation, I mentioned it slightly earlier. So we can see that separated energy in the form of CBR, cosmic background radiation, is often described as the fingerprint of the universe, and it's one of the most important pieces of evidence we have for the Big Bang sort of existing, and proof that it's there, because CBR is everywhere. If you tune in a radio to a station that doesn't have a frequency, and you hear that familiar static, I say familiar like everyone tunes in their radios nowadays, but if you hear that static, you can actually hear, part of that you actually hear will be the CBR, so you'll be able to hear the background radiation of space. So every time you tune in a radio, if you ever do, part of that static is the beginning of the universe. That was so impressive, I've lost my place. CBR was discovered accidentally by two men, Arno Prezas and Bob Wilson, who were working on a radio antenna. They were trying to eliminate all background noise from this very sensitive antenna. But they found a very faint hum coming from every single direction they sort of, turned it to. They tried everything to get rid of the sound, even going as far as to murder the poor pigeons that kept pooping on the antenna. Those pigeons, sadly, gave their lives for science. Because after that, they took this sound to an astronomer, and he was like, "You found it, you've done it," and then they got all these awards, and it was fantastic. So the final proof is that we can see it. Light has a speed. When we look at the sun, we're seeing the light that's left it 8 minutes ago. But if we look through a telescope and we say we can see something 13.8 billion years away, we're looking at it happened at something 13.8 billion years ago. So you can literally see the beginnings of the universe. There are a few big unanswered questions in cosmology. Some of them are, what is dark matter? We know it's all around us. We know it affects things, it affects gravity, but it doesn't affect light, but nobody has a clue what it does. And where else has life in the universe emerged? If there's life here, it's probably life like somewhere abouts. And also, people were still not sure if there was anything before the Big Bang and what exactly caused it. Any questions?
thinking is I'm just a tiny, pointless sack of
We
energy.
all matter because we're all matter. That was it. There you go.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, so that was a talk on the universe, and I feel really tiny and pointless. But actually, I learned more there than I learned for however many years of science lessons I did at school, so that was super useful. You okay? You okay? Okay, cool. Yeah, so obviously, that's kind of the point of these things, that we can learn things that we have no idea about, even though they terrify us, because maybe if we learn things that scare us, they'll scare us less, or more. I'll let you know when I go home tonight. Apparently, according to the PowerPoint, it's Hayley next, so sorry to kind of blame Thomas, he's not here. Hayley is going to come and talk.
My slides are nowhere near as cool as Karl's like. But for those who don't know me, my name's Hayley Billington. I'm a third year child and youth student. The subject I want to be discussing is the topic of my dissertation, which is called Heavy Metal Healing. How does music, specifically heavy metal, punk and rock, influence young people's self-reported mental health? I chose this topic as I believe that to some extent music does influence our behaviours, and that young people can relate to the music they listen to. I know from personal experience that I listen to these forms of music to comfort myself, and I use them as a form of escape from my own mental health problems. Over the last few years I've used bands like Death Havana. Last year that helped me a lot, and then over the course of this year I've been listening to The Colour Morale and Beartooth a lot more, because their lyrics resonate to how I feel. So yeah, I am a bit nervous, so excuse me. While I was conducting my study, it was brought to my attention that a 15-year-old high school student by the name of James Locke had committed suicide, and the Daily Mail had stated that his musical preference may have been a factor within his death, as apparently is a couple of them there. There's one there, and I'm trying to find the Welsh one. I didn't put it on. That he apparently, when the paramedics turned up and the police turned up to assess what was going on, Slipknot was playing while it all happened. This incident was also stated in a Welsh Online paper, stating that in the past he'd partaken in self-injurious behaviour, and that he'd been seen by a counsellor, which the Daily Mail, typical as it is, didn't mention that. So I am just going to rip on the Daily Mail a little bit. It's not the first time that the Daily Mail has said these things. Some of the cases were also brought up in the Mirror as well, which had the same political views. As the top corner, the 13-year-old that hanged himself because of being targeted for being an emo. His name was Sam Leeson, and that case was in 2008. Sorry, I've just lost where I'm up to. They both mentioned the band Slipknot, and obviously the genre they are in is kind of new metal style. However, the Daily Mail stated that they were thrash metal, hardcore rock, and alternative rock, which doesn't define them in the slightest bit correct. And they really need to learn their facts before they present it. And within the Daily Mail and the Mirror, they also highlighted Will Cornick, which is this one down here, and the one about Dark Souls and Grand Theft Auto. He was the one that stabbed his teacher last year, and they then, instead of figuring out that he had mental health problems, which it was brought to in the inquest of the murder, they stated that it was because of Dark Souls 2, GTA, Call of Duty, Bring Me the Horizon, and then Shikari. So it's like, really? And these are one of the reasons that I chose to do a dissertation on this topic, because I wanted to prove that this isn't right. There are actual underlying issues why people do the things they do. The media creates negative interpretations for these genres of music, which enforce the notion that music, specifically those of the heavier persuasion, can be detrimental to the health and well-being of young people. referring to music in such a way can be considered to be problematic, is it may induce moral panics, which a couple of years ago it was brought out in the media, and parents become like, oh no, our kids can't listen to this music because it's going to like cause them to cut themselves and things like that, which is so not right. And also these media, like as I said before, because I wanted to prove that these are incorrect views. These are some of the questions that were in my questionnaire, which I think most people in this room did. Sorry, I lost what I want to say. I did a questionnaire which was split into 2 sections. The first one had about 9 questions and the second had 14. And it was split into 2 sections to prevent the participants from any potential distress, because I didn't want to trigger any negative emotions that they may have. The first section, the participants had to answer a series of questions which developed a method of identifying them, and this was through their hair colour, who their favourite band was, which turned out to be really tricky because no one could think of one person. And it was also to assess whether they were eligible, which I know most people were like, when it was like, oh, what do we do? Like, who do we put? And I was like, just pick someone you can identify to straight away if you want to withdraw. To assess the eligibility of them going on to the second section, I asked questions about they'd consumed alcohol within the last 3 hours or any illicit substances, and whether they, how they'd rate their mental health on a scale of 1 to 5. If the participant had stated that they'd consumed alcohol or any illicit substances, it was down to my own personal judgment on whether they'd continue, because there's no measurable way that I could have used to detect their levels of intoxication. In most of the cases, it was like when they said oh yeah, I'd had a pint before my lecture or something like that, I was like, oh, you're fine to continue. In a lot of the cases it was, with the illicit substance, it was cannabis. It was like, how would you feel? You're not really jumpy or anything, you're all quite relaxed, and it actually made them more open to take part in my study. So I was like, okay. And then with the final question, if they said that their health and well-being was moderate or lower, I didn't continue because I didn't want to cause any negative effects or any distress to that person. Within the second section, there was a variety of different topics that I asked my participants. The first topic that we spoke about was religious beliefs, and whether they had any, and if it affected their choice in music, which I'll go into a little bit more in a minute when I go on to my actual results. They were also provided with a list of 22 genres, which is a little bit, and they were asked to circle all the ones that related to them, and they were also given the opportunity to add others, which in a lot of the cases I had power metal, classical, rap and hip hop were added. They were also then asked to, again, list between 3 or 5 of their favourite musicians, which everyone's either their minds went completely blank on what they wanted to say, or they was I can't think of 5 bands. I can think of 20, but I can't narrow them down to my 5 favourites. It then went on to ask about how long they'd been listening to these genres of music and why they chose to listen to them. And then it followed on to find, this was my main question, which was hidden in the middle, was, do the young people relate to the music that they listen to? Do they find meaning in the songs they listen to? They were then presented with the big wheel, which was quite fun, because everyone got highlighters, so everyone could colour in which ones they wanted. And I asked them how many of the emotions did they feel when they listened to the music. they were then also presented with the Likert scale that's there, and they were asked on a scale of 1 to 5 to rate each of the statements, with 1 being agree mostly and 5 being completely disagree, which gave out some really awesome answers for my point that I wanted to make. They were then asked, did they listen to the music when they were in certain moods? Like, when they were upset, do they listen to it, or is it just because it's something to do? And then if they were like, yeah, it does, it's like, well, how does it affect your mood? And then it was, could the participants imagine their own lives without music? Considering the first question within the Likert scale was, I couldn't live without music, the answers were a little bit different because there was 4 participants between the space of that question. I think it was 3 lower. I'm trying to think of how my questionnaire went. It was 3 lower. 4 people changed their mind on how they felt without music, which was quite interesting. And then my final question within it was, one at the top, what are your opinions on the recent negative press surrounding young people in this genre? I'm talking really fast, I've just realised. Because I've only got like 3 more cue cards to read. As well as the negative images that the Daily Mail produced while I was doing my research, Kerrang released the Rock Against Depression campaign, which was released, I think it was about 3 weeks after the incident with James Lark, and it was about 2 days after Robin Williams, so it was like really good timing for when it all came out. So I was like, yay, something to write about in the dissertation. And the idea of the Rock Against Depression campaign was to break down the stigmas around mental health, specifically those within the music and young people. There was numerous articles released over, I think it was about a 6-month period, but I looked mainly at 2 of them, which had little short interviews with numerous artists like Jenna McDougall from Tonight Alive, Stephen Bastille from Lost Alone, Craig Owens from Days, Danny Wallace-Knott from Asking Alexandria and We Are Harlot. There was Caleb Schmo from Beartooth. I'm trying to think who else was in it. There was members from Issues. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think there was about 16 interviews that I read. And they all discussed their own mental health problems, how they overcame their problems and how they cope with them now, and what advice they'd give to their fans of music, of their bands. And then throughout my discussion of my results, I linked the interviews to my findings. As I said about religion, 24 of the participants, well, it was a study, the study had 59 participants do the first section, and only 40 could go on to the second. This is the only one I've actually got a proper figure for, because the rest of them are the majority or half of and things like that. 24 of the participants said that they held religious beliefs, and they went across the ranges of Christianity, paganism, neo-paganism, spiritualist, atheist, agnostic, and I had one participant say that he was a Jedi, which made me laugh when I was going through them. And 38 said that their religious beliefs had no effect on the music, whereas they were like, I don't think it does, but I'm really not sure. As a lot of the fans stated that, I think it's up there, yeah, on the top corner, that they'd been listening to the genres of music for over 7 years, and when they were asked why they listened to these genres of music, they said that it was down to parental and friendship influences. And it can be assumed that with linking to my literature review, which I'm not going to go into massive detail on because I read about 30 articles just on like vulnerability and suicide, relationships with music. I was like, I'm not going to bore you to death with all that. But it can be assumed that as they've been listening to a long period of time, that young people's personal identities and social development have been influenced by their choice in music. And it inferred that the studies conducted by numerous researchers, I'm not going to go into the names because I can't pronounce most of them, because there's a couple of Italian people and things like that. It's like, I don't want to offend anyone by mispronouncing names. On how musical preference can potentially influence a young person's identity, and through my results it proved that it was correct. When the participants were asked could they relate to music, which is the one in the middle, they were the responses I was given by the participants, which supported the ideas put forward by Lacoste et al. As they stated that the themes in metal, punk and rock songs could be related to their emotions and works as a distraction from how they really felt. This also supports the work by Shield and Westfeld, I think it is, that music reflects emotions and the participants' musical choices resonated with their emotions. Also, a lot of the participants within why they related to it state that they used it as a coping mechanism, and that I think that was Hill that suggested that music could be a coping mechanism, and then obviously my results proved that some young people do in fact use it as that way, which then also highlights the idea of Jenny McDougall from Tonight Alive. She said that during high school she was bullied a lot, and earlier into primary school, and she used the music she listened to as a form of escape from that, and it helped her overcome the issues that she felt. And the fact that the young people said that they related to the lyrics within the songs shows that some young people use it through vicarious beliefs, and this is because young people may perceive the lyrics and believe that the musicians have gone through the same situations they have and the same experiences, so they use those experiences of the musicians to help get over their problems. However, it was proposed by some researchers that believing that musicians go through these problems and attaching such meanings to the songs can be problematic, as you don't know what they're really thinking, so you shouldn't attach them meanings to it. However, when I was reading through the interviews in Kerrang, it can be proposed that the lyrics do relate to their personal issues, because Steve Battel, I think it is, from Lost Alone, and Craig Owens from Cheerdos state that they write about their suffering with depression and other forms of like alcoholism and drug use. Caleb Schmo from Beartooth says that he uses the band as his getaway, and that he uses as a form of therapy, which is then also stated by Danny Warsnop, who suffers from depression and alcoholism. So he writes songs as his therapy. He also went to a group called Musicars, which helped him develop these methods of coping with his alcoholism and depression, was to write about it. Baker and Bohr suggested that positive effects on emotions can be exhibited when listening to certain songs that they find meaning within. I think I've got it. From the big wheel, I asked them to highlight the ones that they felt, and I then, to analyse it, I put into SPSS, and groups them together of, they felt 1 to 5 of the positive emotions, 6 to 10, and so forth, which gave me them results. So it showed that most of the participants said that they felt between 6 and 10 of the positive emotions, and they found that more of the participants found positive emotions when listening listening to the music than they did the negative feelings. The fact that young people said that they listen to music when they're in certain moods supported the ideas put forward by Oliviera and Rodriguez as they attach meanings to certain songs. And through attaching such emotions to music, they stated that when they listened to them, they felt more relaxed, calmer, the music elevated their mood, and they felt more optimistic, which then again supports Hill's idea that music can be used as therapy. Within the like it scale that I showed before, one of the statements, statement H was music makes me angry. The majority of participants stated that, half the participants specifically rejected the statement completely and said that music does not make them angry in any way, which therefore disputes Rodriguez and Olivia's idea that there are potential links between aggression and music, which also argues the Daily Mail and all the ideas put forward at the start, where they're saying that music is the cause of them going out and hurting other people, which clearly in my research shows that it's not the case. Can't remember what's the point. When I asked the young people about their feelings about the negative press, there was an outstanding amount of people that said it was all complete and utter bullshit, which I thought I agree with as well. However, some participants said that, it was proposed that the media portrayals give people negative perceptions of those who are fans of these genres, and a lot of the participants say that music was the media used music as a scapegoat to deflect from wider societal issues, and that they were deflecting from the issues like bad parenting, bad education, the fact that young people have nowhere to go, and they're just deflecting all them issues onto the music. And the expressions from the young people support the ideas of Hill, like Hill's ideas, that adults blame musical preference of young people for their unhappiness, and that they're using it as a means of deflecting social issues. I talked really fast, so it went really quick. But yeah, that's everything that I got from my study. If you've got any questions, feel free to ask. Yep.
I agree with that 1,000%. I was a cool emo kid at school, and I listened to cool bands, and everyone thought that genuinely, there was a rumour going around that I sacrificed chickens on the weekend. Because of the type of music I listen to. It's not. It wasn't then. Anyway. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting debate. And I think this is a really good point as well, a really good time to bring up the fact that myself and SU President Hayley over there recently finished our training in suicide intervention. So we are now mental health first aid trained, we are suicide assist trained, and we are suicide intervention trained. So if anyone needs anything, or knows anyone who needs anything, let us know, because we're trained, and it would be we're here for you, is what I'm saying. Next up we have Ruby, who's talking about death and wanting to be a mortician, and I'm really excited for this, as equal as I am scared.
Thank you guys. Death, life and beyond. I forgot her name for that. lessons from the mortuary. I haven't actually been inside the mortuary, so I'm really sorry about that. But there is pictures, so first of all, I want to go over safe space because this is a tricky subject and it addresses things that might trigger people. The safe space policy was founded by the LGBT Society, which we've got in 2012, and it's been adapted into the Philosophy Society, Rated and Given, Amnesty and FemSoc. Obviously there's hopefully no discrimination in this. I do talk about subcultures. Obviously, please stop me if anything triggers you. I'll just walk out or talk to me afterwards. Safe space policy is don't be ignorant. Trigger warnings for today. First warning is death, obviously. We're going to be talking about death. Second is there is pictures of corpses, but they are very happy corpses. And I'm quite happy for them, to be honest. So they're not gory. There's also some cannibalism, but they're really nice people too. And lastly, there's a bit of mental illness. So yeah, if anybody needs to stop me at any time, just pop me out. I'll stop. Yeah, thank you for listening. Okay, so why am I interested in death? Basically, I was brought up with a mum who was a Catholic. She's very Catholic. A dad who's an atheist, and a stepmom who is a medium, a psychic, and a spiritualist. So I had lots of different opinions about the afterlife and about death. And one night I was just looking up at the ceiling and I thought, I have no idea what's going on. So I decided, I was so scared, and a lot of people who go into mortuary studies are terrified of death. So that's why we do it, to sort of challenge ourselves and, you know, find out what there is there. That's the only reason I went into psychology in the first place, was to go into neuroscience and see what happens to the brain, but then somebody already did it, so I decided to just go into mortuary work. So death, most people think of it as this gloomy thing that is, it's the inevitable end, it's grief and despair, but no, it's not really. It's part of this wonderful thing we've got called life. It is a part of life, and that's what I'm here to talk about today. Some people are religious and believe in a certain type of afterlife. Some people who aren't religious do the same, and people like humanists and atheists just think we go back to Mother Nature. But just so I don't scare you all, there are possibilities and scientific evidence of there being an afterlife and there not being one. As Karl said, like, we are little aliens on a rock going through weird nothingness, so anything's possible. Nobody wants to die, but to die and to die terrified are vastly different experiences. That's a quote from my favourite mortician, Caitlin Doherty. The reason I've got these pictures here is because I believe in like spirit science and things like that. That's for another time. Oh yeah, I also put this up, which was quite recent, 2014, the first hint of life after death in the biggest ever scientific study in Southampton University. Basically found that the brain continues to carry on after we die, which explains why people come back and things like that. But we're not discussing this today, thank God. Religion's difficult discussion. It's difficult to discuss. Sorry, I'm a bit nervous. Instead, we're discussing death denial, the order of the good death, the process of a body in a mortuary and the process of a body out of a mortuary, death in other cultures, and other lessons from the crematory. Why has this happened? Sorry about this. Early psychologist death beliefs. Ernest Becker wrote The Denial of Death in 1973, and he basically said that human civilization is ultimately just a symbolic defense of our own mortality. I don't agree with this at all. He thinks that people suffer from depression when this thing called the cause sui. The cause sui is like this heroism complex. So basically he thinks that we constantly have to attach ourselves to things such as religion and things that we feel like are everlasting in order to sort of function properly. And he said that people who suffer from depression are people who have the cause sui interrupted, so they recognise their own mortality. I completely disagree with this, because I recognise my own mortality and I feel pretty contented. And he thinks that people with schizophrenia have to create their own reality, which is awful, and I disagree with completely, but I have to talk about it because it is the first denial of death book. Yeah, I said that. This is Caitlin Doherty. She's my favourite mortician, and a writer of Smoke Gets in Your Eyes and Other Lessons from the Crematory. What's the Order of the Good Death? I'm part of the Order of the Good Death, and we basically, we are a group who are dedicated to curtailing death phobia. What we believe in is making sure people die knowing that they've done everything they wanted to do, knowing that they're self-aware, and that they go to death as nature intended without harming the environment. Jessica Mitford was actually the first lady to openly criticise the funeral industry. She wrote a book in 1963 called The American Way of Death, and basically galvanised a major backlash in the American funeral industry, which is understandable as it's such a profitable business with corpse makeup, $10,000 caskets. Caitlin believes that we should still be able to interact with our loved ones and lost ones on a personal level through washing them and shrouding them ourselves and having a wake. Back in the day, before funeral industries, dead bodies actually used to be kept in a glass box, in vinegar and on a bed of ice, sometimes with a face showing, sometimes with not, and they'd look after them, realise that, you know, we were really interacting with death on a personal level. Our death denial culture nowadays is basically we hide the bodies. We don't see them, they are hidden, and we don't engage with death as a very natural part of life. We're trying to act like dead bodies don't exist in our culture, we just don't see it, and we want people to chat about their mortality. There's no use in saying, oh honey, it's so morbid, let's focus on life. It creates stigma, fear, repulsion. When somebody dies, people just don't talk about it, and that creates mental health problems for everyone. And that's what we're here to sort of talk about, get people talking about the mortality, and get people facing it in a positive way, which is I'm on to death positivity. It's basically educating others about death, reducing the stigma, and making sure people are happy with how they are, being more self-aware, and then they're more self-aware of the things they do to others. So this is Where Have All the Corpses Gone? This is a little video by Caitlin. Hopefully I can get to it. If not, I'll have to get to it at the end. Oh no. Would I be able to put that on at the end? Possibly?
Yeah, of course, yes.
Okay, cool. Death in Other Cultures. Okay, this is the corpse I was talking about, and he looks a bit like my dad, so it's really scary. This is it's called Manen, and it's the ceremony of cleansing corpses, and it takes place in Toraja in South Sulawesi. I don't know what to say. It's Indonesia anyway. If these mummies weren't already dead, they'd be dressed to kill. Sorry. Basically what happens is family members of the deceased exhume the bodies, which means they dig them up, change the clothes and wash them, and then walk them around the village in a form of respectful remembrance until they can't do it anymore, which I think is quite lovely. Sounds horrible, but you know, it's a really nice way of remembering the dead, so they're not forgotten. Secondly is, forgive me if I don't pronounce this right, it's Soku Shibutsu, I think. Basically it's a form of self-mummification. It's now banned in Japan, but it was popular amongst Buddhist monks in Tibet and Japan, and basically what had happened, it was founded by Kukai in 774 AD. The process of self-mummification, for the first 1,000 days what happens is the monk will cease all food except nuts, seeds, fruits and berries, and they'll engage in extensive activity in order to reduce all body fat. For the next 1,000 days the diet is restricted to just bark and roots. Near the end of this period they'll drink this poisonous tea from the Yurushi tree, which causes vomiting and purging of fluids, which acts as a preservative after the person's passed away. In the final stage, after more than 6 torturous years of this preparation, the monk locks himself in a stone tomb, which is barely larger than his body, where he'll go in a self-meditation state. A small air tube provided oxygen, and each day the monk rings a bell to say that he's still alive, and then when he passes away, when the bell stops ringing, they go check on him, and if the body is mummified, he is respected and worshipped. If not, he is respected nonetheless, but he's not worshipped. Sky burials, another natural form of burial, which I believe in. And basically, this is a funeral practice, usually in Mongolia, Tibet, Qinghai, and Mongolia proper. Basically, the corpses are put on top of a mountain for birds of prey to feed on, or to just go straight into the earth, which is a really natural form of burial. It's great for the earth. In these cultures, they believe in the transmigration of spirits, so the spirits leave the body. There's no need to keep the body anymore. So they move on, and that's their way of coping. I think that's a really nice way of coping too. All the things these have in common is the fact that they're natural and don't harm the earth. Lastly, I forgot about these, the cannibals of Papua New Guinea. These are really awesome. Basically what happens when a family member passes away, or a member of the tribe, they will eat the body to come to terms with the death. So they cleanse the dead person's soul by giving the muscle to the stronger members of the tribe and the organs to the women and children. And they don't enjoy this at all. It can make people really ill because of toxins, and it's done for respect and respect only. But it's a culture that faces death of the people they love in a way that we don't. We just deny it completely, and we get afraid to bring it up. Other than awake, and corpses during awake are completely wrong, but I'll talk about that later. They're mostly plastic, makeup and formaldehyde. This is the amount of chemicals used on a corpse to correct the way they look, to correct cavities, to restore water, to correct colour. It's awful. It's like formaldehyde. Like 20% of morticians get leukemia every year because of these chemicals, because they're that harmful, and it makes me think about what they're doing to the environment. These are prosthetics that are used on like our loved ones and things like that when they pass away, my loved ones and things like that. And I don't think that's great either, because it's completely making them look like plastic. Like I went to, it's easy to talk about now, but a few months ago my uncle passed away, and as a Catholic we went to a rosary, so it's like a wake, where it's like an open casket, and I swear to God, my uncle, he looked a bit fatter than usual, and he was wearing more makeup than me, so it was really interesting. This is the amount of makeup used on, it's more makeup than I have actually, that's used typically on a dead person, and it's very fake, and it really is creating so much stigma, I believe. So lastly, you're probably wondering, why do I still want to be a mortician if I think the funeral industry is really bad? Because this is the views of other morticians, and I also think that you can't change anything unless you learn about it first. I believe that. I want to go into it to discuss natural burials, and I do really care about people, and I understand why these things are put in place. I understand they're put in to comfort people, but I honestly think the comfort's only really needed because we don't address it, and I do think it creates a lot of mental health problems, the fact that we don't address death before we experience it. As I've said, and they are getting better, they really are, with the Order of the Good Death, because she's gone really popular now, and it's really changing the way the death industry works. I also think people should be educated, like death, before they have to go through it. I believe in preparing ourselves. Denial really isn't the answer. Talking about it might be a morbid subject, but by talking about it, we can make it the norm. And at the end of it all, you matter. There's a spelling mistake here, by the way. Even if you acknowledge our shared definitive feature, which is our mortality, it's something we all go through, and understanding it's better shared. Everything you do that happens on this planet will affect how the future happens, so you do really matter on this earth. And the Order of the Good Death is just a way to become more self-aware. If we're more self-aware that we have a limited time here, we can do the best we can every day and make everybody's lives better for them. Use it to improve the future for our newer little humans and things like that, and make the future better for them so they're not afraid like I was when I was young. Yeah, so that's the end of it. Thank you.
Do you want to play your video?
Yeah, can I?
Yeah.
How do I? It might not be relevant now, but it's interesting. You can see how positive she is.
I don't want to die without knowing what this video is, so I feel like I have to see it now.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by the Mortality Awareness Foundation of America. Where have all the corpses gone? Until I was 23 years old, I didn't see too many dead bodies. I went to an open casket wake once and saw a baby in a jar on a field trip to the hospital. Even though 2.5 million people die every year in the US, I just didn't see them. Then I got a job at a crematory, and there they were. They had been hiding. Well, to be more accurate, they had been hidden by the living. Funeral home workers drive their unmarked vans up to hospital loading docks to retrieve and make off with their secret cargo. Generic wooden crates containing deceased humans hitchhike in the cargo holds of passenger airplanes. Bodies are sent to centralized facilities to be embalmed or cremated, disposed of, so as not to disturb our first world corpse-free privilege. But sometimes a naughty corpse slips through the cracks, like the one in Philadelphia that fell out of the back of a coroner's van and plopped into the street. The horror, the outrage, how dare you make me face the reality of death through an inconveniently placed corpse. Forgetting that there was a time before funeral directors, not so long ago, when the dead were the responsibility of the family and the community, not some vast system of denial. Maybe, just maybe, that first world corpse-free privilege is not such a privilege after all. To find out how I learned to stop worrying and love the corpse, Smoke Gets in Your Eyes and Other Lessons from the Crematory. Available wherever books are available.
Sorry, I'll just get through that again. So, yeah, it worked. Okay, thank you for that, guys.
So, crematory employee, you've given me this urn with my...
I didn't realise it was a playlist. Sorry about that. Right, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask me at the end. And if I've upset anyone, please, tell me so I can correct that. Okay, thank you.
My favourite ever dead person story, and bear with me on this one, is when me and my big sister went to see my dad in the mortuary thing, and it was really sad. We did the goodbye thing, and we walked out, and she said to me, "Do you want to know a secret?" And I said, "Always." And she said, "He's not wearing underpants." And apparently she'd sent this this fancy suit and stuff, but obviously you don't think of underwear for dead people. And she was like, and I felt like I didn't want to inconvenience them by making them undress them and put his pants on again. So my dad went to the afterlife, whatever that may be, commando, which makes me really happy for some weird reason. And for someone who's absolutely terrified of death, that actually made me feel a bit better. And I'm going to download the book on my Kindle, and maybe I'll be a mortician this time next year. And last but not least, we have Phillip Carter, who's going to do the future of humanity, which I feel like is going to be another very deep subject, but I'm sure it's going to be really great.
Right, hello.
Ooh, this is fun. Hi, ladies.
Right, so I'm Phillip Carter. I'm the Edgehill Poetry Society president, and today's the 24th of March, in case anybody's not already noticed. And this is the future of humanity. Maybe not all of us, but some of us are going to be the future of humanity. And there is going to be rude bits. The future of humanity, introducing transhumanism, the red one, and techno-Gaianism, the green one. What is our purpose in the universe, and where might we be headed? I really should have tried reading this out beforehand. What is the singularity, the blue one, people keep worrying about, and what do these three colourful words, unless you're colourblind, in which case I'm sorry, mean for humanity? Our theme, technology is good. It can give back to the universe. Don't fear it. It is as much a part of evolution as the development of eyes, psychic powers, and some other unsavoury things. So,
Now to introduce the big words which I've already technically introduced. Transhumanism, a cultural/intellectual movement which aims to transform humanity with technology. Transhumanists like myself argue that we should develop widely available technologies to improve the human experience. Our goals are life extension, mind enhancement, and a progression into technologies that would ultimately transform what it means to be human. Examples of technology you might already own are here. I will let you read these for a minute. When somebody giggles, I'll know it's over, and I'll click onto the next one. Yeah, okay, you found the rude bits. There you go. Everybody done reading? Yeah, okay. Okay, so the book currently making its way around the room.
It's not.
Make it move.
This book.
Move it, yeah, that one.
I want to look at it.
Is Zoltan Isfan's Transhumanist Wager, which is the cheapest book I've ever bought at £25 when it first came out. I'm still upset about that, I'm a student. Anyway, it's the first official transhumanist themed novel. In it, the main character, Jeffro, fights to change the world with rapidly evolving technology. I won't spoil any more. If you do want to spoil some more, try and read a bit while I'm talking. I'll look at the synopsis. The writer is currently campaigning to be the US president in 2016, and when asked why he should be president, he simply tweeted Barack Obama a picture of himself surfing down a volcano. He only expects to get in a few years after 2016, however, as he's just using, being the president as a publicity stunt for his book, which I think is great. That's why people should rule the world. Transhumanism is still a growing movement. We don't really exist yet. And now for the green one, techno-Gaianism. A portmanteau word combining techno from technology and Gaian from Gaia philosophy. It is the belief that humans ought to be more inclusive, if anybody's an alien here, any technologically advanced species, and eventually they'll reshape nature in a clean and non-damaging way as their technology and society progresses. For humans, this means undoing the damage we've already done, and it's one of the main philosophies of transhumanism. It goes neatly underneath the red one, so it goes green, red, green, blue. And there's a yellow one later on, but I'm not going to tell you about that yet. So more techno-Gaianism. This one's pretty self-explanatory. Basically, if a species is powerful enough, it'll ruin everything in its path, run out of stuff, and starve to death. We're almost at that point, so let's not do that. Let's make robots and fix the Earth, basically. So yeah, a foreign species introduced into an ecosystem, or us, we maximise our own resource consumption. Sorry to all those species we killed. And reach an equilibrium beyond which we can't continue growing, or we'll just die. So it's completely impossible for us to totally destroy our host environment, but it is possible that it will destroy us. Techno-Gaianism already has some impressive technology at its side. For example, hydrogen fuel cells, nanotechnology, and I'll let you read the rest. And yeah, someone's came up with a type of bacteria in Venice recently, and Venice is slowly corroding. And as the bricks are decomposing, she's decided to make a type of bacteria that actually literally shits bricks. It shits cement. So she's fixed Venice with bacteria that shits bricks. Fantastic. That's the point of science. The singularity. An event predicted by some to be in the near future, most famously Ray Kurzweil. If anybody is an anorak and loves the X-Files, he was referenced plenty of times. He thinks that in 2045, robotic intelligences will be more intelligent than human intelligences. Some do believe the singularity is already here, since the average oven is actually more intelligent than most people. However, this is incorrect. So too is the notion that computers which play chess better than our best humans are more intelligent than us. Intelligence is not just problem solving, but logic, abstract thought, understanding, self-awareness, communication, learning, emotional knowledge, planning, memory, and, problem solving. More singularity stuff. There are three main scenarios that can play out when artificial intelligence reaches a singularity. Scenario 1, the Hollywood approach. Thanks, Tom Cruise. Everyone dies! Because they kill us. This is least likely. Machines more intelligent than us will probably think, war, doesn't that seem like a waste of time? I'd hope so anyway. So basically Hollywood shit. Scenario 2, the decent science fiction writers approach. Thanks to Arthur C. Clarke for this one. The machines either don't care and leave us alone, or help us, as seen in The City and the Stars. Raise your hand if you've read that book. Yeah, it's 3 of us. So this one's quite fun to think about and might eventually happen as an offshoot of Scenario 3. If anybody's ever seen 1950s and 60s adverts about robots, they seem to exist only to serve us. But then back then, so did half of the human race. So the 50s was wrong, basically.
Yeah.
Because robots deserve rights, women deserve rights, and everybody else deserves rights. So Scenario 3 is the most likely, and it's the most stupid, and it's also the most sexy. We blend into their kind in a sort of cyborg convergent evolution. This is the goal of transhumanism. See, it all became relevant in the end. Scenario 3, we're going to go more into this one. So we're going to blend into their kind, and this is the most likely and the least ridiculous. The stuff of science fiction, some people might add. Well, I would say that the first human to cyborg hate crime was recorded in Paris in 2009. I'm being serious with this one. When a man was attacked in front of his family by McDonald's staff for wearing a prototype of Google Glass. The man had lost most of his eyesight a few years before, and in fact had the set screwed into his skull in order to give his brain vital visual stimuli. It was easy to arrest the culprits, well, because he had a camera in his head, basically. So, well done McDonald's staff for attacking a guy with a camera for a face. A report of the crime states that they forcefully tried to remove the glasses while shouting abuse at the man and his family, because apparently they were evil as well. The technology is already here, the human race just needs to catch up. So, transhumanists believe that artificial intelligence and human intelligence will one day do that. With that sound effect. This will happen sometime around the singularity, the blue one. At this point, the word human will mean a lot more than it does today. People will be able to download memories, upload themselves to spare bodies, and even transcend the physical form. Techno-Gaianism will restore rainforests, bring extinct species back, and start creating more that help regulate the environment, such as the brick-shitting Venice robots. The everyday things we are so used to will start to become less and less frequent, and will seem odd to future humans. For example, birthing children. One day that just probably won't happen, but we'll get onto that in a minute. Finding all this hard to imagine? Well, think about how a caveman would react if you showed him footage of the moon landing or the internet. Aside from laughing at lolcats, he'd probably freak out and try and kill himself. Now remember how you feel about the future of humanity right now. Just because you can't comprehend it doesn't make it impossible. 10,000 years ago, we were stalking across ice sheets and fighting for survival with no idea who was over the horizon. Now we have machines in space that keep us all connected and allow us to stalk people on the other side of the world instantaneously, which is frightening. This sort of technology will change the world forever, but if you think about it, the world changes forever every second, irreparably. Try going back to this second. Point made. You can't stay in the past. Zoltan Istvan fears religious groups may one day attack transhumanism because of their conflicting beliefs. Damn them. Ooh, an empty slide. Ooh, animations. The implications of future technology. Now you know what these movements mean, let's take a deeper look at what the future might hold for us. The big changes, pros, cons, and the other thing. Ectogenesis, that means growing a baby outside a human womb. This might seem odd to some of us, but it does come with a lot of benefits. Our inbuilt imbalance of prenatal care will disappear. I managed to pronounce that sentence perfectly. Well done, mate. Babies will not be affected by the toxins potentially ingested by a parent. That means you can get pregnant and stoned at the same time. Brilliant. And close machine monitoring will fix any issues that arise before birth. But obviously the cons are everybody could, a baby would be fashionable. If Angelina Jolie has one with, blue eyes and blonde hair, then everyone who reads any magazine she's in will then have babies with blue eyes and blonde hair, and then if a disease gets us, we all die. So, epigenetics could one day be an argument towards keeping a baby in a natural room, and that is the theory that stuff that happens outside you can actually change your genetic code. It's recently been proven, but I'm not going to get into it because it involves a lot of space maths. Anyway, ectogenesis will also allow companies to store the genetic data of your child. Scary. As nice as it might be to bring someone back if they die, there is a potential here for an army of the same person. And let's be honest, think of someone you hate. Think of 1 million of them. It's not a good idea. As Zoltan Istvan points out, there needs to be strict rules in place so these things don't happen, and these rules need to exist now. That's what transhumanism is about. We know the technology is going to happen at one point. We just need to stop it going absolutely batshit crazy. Immortality. So, is that real? Yes. Some species of jellyfish are already biologically immortal, but they're also quite weak. Actually, like a change of about half a degree of temperature or a little pinch of salt will kill them. Though, if in the perfect environment, they just keep regenerating tissue on and on and on and on, and they just won't die, even if you stand on them. Only external things can kill them. Zoltan Istvan and Ray Kurzweil believe immortality in humans is as close as the end of this century. We could download our minds, alter our memories and perceptions, learn more than was ever possible before. Death, however, as much as we would like to avoid it, see, it ties in with all the other ones, is a way of categorizing the human experience. Our minds have evolved to work with death, and it exists as a method for evolution to use the same finite resources to move forwards. We basically play leapfrog with the dead. We learn from them, and if they stick around, well, the world will get quite crowded. We exist in the space between two nothings, before life and after life. I always find it funny how the English language doesn't really have a word or a phrase for the process before life, but does for what comes after. Aren't we arrogant? Expanding your horizons. As mentioned before, technology could soon allow us to learn new things at a rate never achieved before. I'm going to read this off the smaller screen, I'm going to break my neck. We could alter our memories, download information right into our heads. We might even become a hive mind, which is awesome, working towards the same goal of learning everything, but acting as separate units. Obviously, there's an issue with this: privacy. Where does privacy go when our brains are on the internet? Simply put, one day privacy might be pointless. We'll have to undergo some serious psychological changes for this to work. The same works with the monetary system. Once all jobs are taken by robots, we don't really need to do anything. The monetary system will collapse, artists will prevail as the architects of the future. Yay! Writers will suddenly be important, and our worth will be that of the equality of our dreams. To be honest, this isn't a bad thing. So, your worth will be that of your imagination. So, gender. Why not? Down with the gender binary. Woo! In fact, while we're at it, let's just get rid of all gender. What do you think of that? No gender. This idea ties in with abolitionism, the yellow one, or light orange as Microsoft PowerPoint says it is, which is another offshoot of transhumanism. Yet again, more branches. According to evolutionary theory, humans evolved through natural selection and follow genetic imperatives that seek to maximize reproduction. So close. But not happiness. Basically, your wobbly bits aren't really there for the entertainment of yourselves, your partner, or that person on the internet who you think you're close to. Yeah, that's just evolution convincing you to have sex. How very manipulative, evolution. Basically, evolution is just a sly bastard. Abolitionism basically wants to get rid of needless suffering by using biotech to alter the human brain and body. As we grow to learn that gender is more fluid than certain institutions might want us to think it is, I'm not naming names, we also begin to evolve past the need for gender. If we birth children in machines, why breed naturally? The cons for this are obvious. If we forget how to fix the machines and they stop making kids and we don't have the bits to make kids, well, the human race kind of stops there. That's not a great thing. Ideally, with transhumanism, we'd have natural humans and transhumanist humans, and we'd all get together and we'd all be fine, and everybody would love each other, and it'd be great, and there'd be mermaids and everything. Mermaids, possible. We can do it. You're pleased about that. The big changes to humanity, pros and cons more. I could go on. The future is big and filled with weird things, but this is supposed to be an introduction. I'm not going to explain all of the universe. So this is the end to the introduction. But first, a bit about existentialism. And before that, I'd like to thank the Phil Lander, who I think is sadly going to die soon, for these wonderful pictures of the Rosetta comic. Comet, not comic. Our purpose in this universe, what is it? I don't know, but I had a go at writing down what I thought it was. Oh, it's moved. Okay, so thank Tom for that. He's moved it. So we're all born from the dust of exploded stars, which in turn were born from the dust of the first specks of matter in the universe. Like Karl says, we all matter because we are matter. We are the universe as it grows. Our lives are the lives of sensory organs, cells in a greater organism, which is the universe. We're all experiencing things. We all learn from each other. And maybe, when we die, That's just the universe's way of categorizing those memories. We, life, are a way for the universe to experience itself. As we age and our knowledge and wisdom grows, so too does that of the universe. So it is our duty to do our best to protect and enhance the life around us, to evolve and to learn relentlessly. That's the basic philosophy of transhumanism, one which I share. It's basically don't ignore change, it will happen. I mean, because we used to think the world was flat, we used to think the sun was the centre of the universe, and now we think we're always going to look like this. That will probably change too. So this is it now. If anybody wants to throw some questions at me, or cues, if you'll hit, do so now. I'll answer any question, even if it's not relevant. Why not?
Do you moisturise, by the way?
The beard?
No, I mean just in general.
No. No, tweed's just really warm. Yeah.
Why do you have face fur then?
Why?
Yeah.
Because it ventilates it, doesn't it? It does. It makes life better. He knows. It makes life better. My beard used to be the same as that. We got rid of it. I don't know why. I hate that. Words, words, words. Oh, there's more. This wouldn't be a good presentation if there was no mindless self-promotion. So, the Edgehill Poetry Society meets every Monday between 6 and 8 in M39. If you don't turn up, I'll cry. We regularly discuss things like this as well as shout at radiators. Thank Tristram for that. It's fun. Our next session will be after the Easter break, but we're mainly doing workshops at the moment because we actually have things to do. If you want to read more of my musings on the future of humanity, you can. I wish I could drag that over there. It was over there before. You can visit my website, which is that one. I'm not going to give you a chance to write it down. Screw you guys. I'm going home. Thank you for listening. And there's another bit which goes.
We don't know how to feel now. Do I feel really small? Do I feel like I'm going to live forever? Do I feel like I'm going to die and I should give something back to I just don't know. I'm always really proud in these events, and this is going to sound really gushy and being genuine. I know, right? I'm always proud to see how intelligent our students are, and not just in kind of the things that they're taught in classes, but also the things that they're interested in their everyday life. And I think you need to appreciate kind of how scary it is to stand up here and talk. And I think everyone did a really great job, so we should give them a clap. And even if no one else liked it, I liked it, and I learned some things today. Feel free to mill around and finish the last little drops of wine. If you fancy signing up for the next one, just message Thomas. I'd be surprised if he said no to a topic, so we're quite excited for that. And yeah, thanks so much for getting involved with stuff. We've got nothing to plug, have we? Oh, it's Wear a Hat Day on Friday. Wear a hat on Friday and tweet me a picture because it's to raise money and awareness. It's also rock. Oh!
It's not as good as Poetry Society.
Feel free to promote your societies and have a lovely evening.